Cashin had patched hull fractures during plasma storms, welded gravcore stabilizers in the dark belly of drifting wrecks, and once reassembled a warbot with nothing but magnet gloves and a roll of chewing gum. But nothing, absolutely nothing, prepared him for the sheer pressure of mending a garment while being silently stared at by a 7-foot-tall alien warrior who looked like she could throw him through the bulkhead without blinking. He crouched on a steel bench in the makeshift repair bay, the alien fabric draped carefully across his lap. The material shimmered faintly, nanothreads flexing like muscle fibers, reacting to the ambient charge in the room. Not quite cloth, not quite tech, just enough of both to make him nervous. Cashin tugged at a loose strand near the collar, muttering, "All right, don't unravel on me. I don't want to die holding a fancy space scarf." The alien woman stood across from him, rigid as a statue. Her skin was pale, almost luminescent in the overhead light, with faint silvery veins that traced delicate patterns beneath the surface. Long ears swept back through a fall of golden hair that hung in strict, braided lines over her shoulders. Her eyes, deep-set and impossibly bright, followed every twitch of his fingers. She hadn't said a word. Not when they brought her in, bloodied and silent. Not when the med drones worked on the cuts across her shoulder. And definitely not when Commander Schultz clapped him on the back and said, "You're our best mechanic, Cass. And she's got ceremonial armor that needs mending. That means you." Cashin wasn't even sure why an alien warrior's battle robes fell under his jurisdiction, but he suspected it had something to do with the fact that everyone else was terrified to go near her. He cleared his throat, trying to break the silence. "So of Valra, right? That's your name." No reply. "I mean, I'm assuming it's your name because it's printed on the requisition form in terrifying block letters." Pretty sure the form glared at me. Was very aggressive paper. Still nothing. She didn't blink, she didn't shift. She just watched him, arms crossed, one brow raised so slightly he might have imagined it. He chuckled awkwardly. "Okay. No worries, I talk to my tools sometimes. They're friendlier." He threaded a stabilizer line through the sleeve, guiding the semi-sentient fibers back into place. The nanoweave reacted to temperature and proximity, curling like a living thing. Cashin bit his lip as it curled around his thumb. "Okay, that's fine, not terrifying. Totally normal alien fabric behavior. If you eat my hand, I am billing someone." Valra's expression remained unchanged, though the corner of her mouth moved just enough to suggest disapproval or maybe mild amusement. He wasn't sure which was worse. The silence stretched again. He looked up. "So, you Ilari folk. You always wear ceremonial armor into battle, or was today just extra special? Some kind of holiday massacre?" "Nothing. You know, in human culture, we usually save our shiny outfits for weddings or aggressive job interviews." Still nothing. He returned to the repairs, trying to steady his breathing. The collar had a complex lattice of memory stitch that responded to muscle movement. One wrong thread and the entire thing could seize up like a choke harness. He worked carefully, biting his tongue as a drop of sweat slid down his temple. From the corner of his eye, he saw her tilt her head slightly. "You think I'm going to mess it up, don't you?" he asked. "Well, I probably am. But if I do, I'll die doing what I love, panicking in front of beautiful women who could break my spine." He froze. He hadn't meant to say that last part out loud. His brain had betrayed him. To his absolute horror, Valra blinked slowly once and shifted her stance. Her arms uncrossed. It wasn't much, but it felt like someone had just dropped a thunderclap in the room. He chuckled nervously. "Okay, yeah, that was a joke. Huh? Not hitting on you. I mean, not intentionally. Not that you're not hit-on-able. I'm just going to stop talking now." Her eyes held his a moment longer, then drifted to the fabric in his lap. Taking that as permission to survive a little longer, Cashin returned to the task. He worked more quickly now, muscle memory kicking in. The robe's lining had to be resealed with a quantum threader, and his hand wasn't steady. The thread danced and slipped. He cursed under his breath and tried again. Finally, after several agonizing minutes, he managed to close the last seam. He exhaled slowly, sitting back. There, should be good as new. Well, mostly. I had to improvise the clasp, but it'll hold. Might even look dignified. Valra stepped forward, Cashin's entire spine locked in place. She was closer now, just a meter away. He could smell the ozone and metal tang of her armor, the strange, earthy scent beneath. Her eyes scanned the garment, fingers brushing over his handiwork. He swallowed. It's not perfect, but She looked up at him. For the first time she spoke. Her voice was low, rich, and unexpectedly soft. Cashin. He froze. She said his name, not human, not engineer, not Repair Unit 3B, his name. His mouth opened slightly, brain scrambling to form any coherent response. I didn't know you knew it. I listen. That was all, 2 words, but they hit harder than any blaster round. He had no idea what to say. So naturally, his panic reflex kicked in. Great, he blurted. Now I'm going to overthink everything I've ever said around you. Valra didn't reply, but something flickered in her gaze. A warmth maybe, or quiet patience. He stood awkwardly, holding out the robe. Here. Finished product, just don't fight any more battles in it for at least 24 hours. It's still emotionally fragile. She took it from his hands, her fingers brushing his. Her skin was cool, smooth, and calloused with the wear of 100 battles. Yet her touch was careful, deliberate. Cashin backed away, trying to play it cool. All right, well, that's my cue to vanish before I say something worse. Like compliment your ears, which I would never do, even though they're extremely aerodynamic. Valra turned away, hiding the faintest twitch at the corner of her mouth. It might have been a smile, might have been. Cashin didn't expect to see her again the next day, or the day after that. He figured their brief and bewildering moment, her saying his name like it meant something, would dissolve into the ever-churning memory pit of weird things that happened to him in deep space. But on the 3rd day, as he walked into the auxiliary hangar with a half-eaten ration bar in his mouth and grease on his chin, he found her sitting silently at his workstation. He froze. Oh, hi. Valra sat with the same unnerving stillness she always carried, but this time she had the repaired robe folded across her lap, and her gaze met his without hesitation. She didn't speak, just nodded once. Cashin awkwardly tried to finish chewing the bar, ended up choking a little, coughed violently, and waved a hand. Not dying, just surprised. Happens all the time. She raised a brow barely and tilted her head. You are functional. Oh, wildly so, he wheezed. Never been more alive. Mostly because you didn't break me in half that first day, so thanks for that. She didn't laugh, but the silence after felt lighter somehow. I didn't expect a follow-up visit, he said, moving toward the bench and wiping it down with the side of his shirt. I assumed I'd be demoted to bolt-tightening duty in Subdeck 5 for the rest of the month. I need your hands, she said. Cashin dropped his cleaning rag. I mean, she clarified calmly, your dexterity. The robe contains internal channels I cannot access alone. Cashin bent down to pick up the rag, heart racing for reasons entirely unrelated to internal channels. Right, okay, hands, let's use those. She stood and placed the garment on the table. As he examined it, he noticed new stress marks along the lining. You wore this again. I was summoned, she said simply. Summoned to what exactly? A dance-off, a knife fight, both. She didn't answer, but her ears twitched slightly. Cashin decided to take that as a maybe. He leaned over the fabric and began scanning it with his handheld field emitter, watching as the embedded threads responded to his touch. The robe was woven with Alari sigil tech, microfilament glyphs that stored memory impressions and kinetic sequences. Very few humans ever got to see this kind of material up close. Even fewer were allowed to touch it. Some of these glyphs are damaged, he muttered, probably from energy feedback. You must have taken a hit hard enough to fry a fusion core. Valra remained still beside him. The ceremony was disrupted. Cashin raised a brow. Let me guess, was it the dance-off? A pause. It was an ambush. Same thing. He didn't mean to joke about her trauma, but her lack of offense reassured him. Her tone remained calm, though something flickered beneath it. I am tasked with restoring my clan's honor. I cannot appear before the tribunal in a broken robe. Well, he said, plugging in a micro-stitch tool and watching the glyphs shimmer to life. Lucky for you, I'm fluent in Threidian. She stared at him blankly. It's a language, he explained, spoken only by people who spend way too much time talking to their sewing equipment. Still nothing. That was a joke, he added. I am learning to recognize them. Oh, good. That was one of my better ones. He worked in silence for a while, carefully easing the nano-threads apart, isolating a corrupted symbol near the shoulder lining. As he adjusted the sequence, a faint pulse emitted from the fabric, a sound, soft and harmonic, like a musical note trapped in time. What is that? He asked, memory echo. Cashin blinked. You mean this thing records sound? She nodded. He tapped the emitter to replay the stored fragment. A strange, melodic voice rang out, sharp syllables in a Lari dialect. Vailra flinched. Cashin quickly silenced it. Sorry, he said, didn't mean to. It is nothing. He hesitated, didn't sound like nothing. She turned away, fingers tightening at her sides. It was my sister's voice. She was commander once. Before me. Cashin's breath caught. He hadn't expected her to offer something so personal. Sorry, he said again, quieter this time. I didn't know. It is not yours to be sorry for. He returned to the fabric, working more gently now. The tension between them was different. Not gone, but changed, like a taut wire finally learning to sing. He couldn't help himself. So, do all your robes carry family drama, or is this one special? She tilted her head again. Would you prefer a robe with less history? I mean, I'd prefer one that doesn't cry at me through space fabric, but I'm adaptable. This time he was sure she smiled. It was tiny, barely a movement of her lips, but it was real. He grinned, pleased with himself, then accidentally shorted a glyph circuit and zapped his finger. Okay, that's fine, that's what we call feedback. Learning opportunity. Electricity is friendship. She said nothing, but her eyes gleamed. As he finished sealing the last few glyphs, he caught her watching him again, not the usual guarded stare, but something softer, something quieter. You're not as noisy as most humans, she said. I'll take that as a compliment. It was not. He smirked, still taking it. She rolled the robe back up, inspecting his work. You are competent and peculiar. That's me in a nutshell, or in this case in a utility vest. He moved to clear the tools, hands still tingling from the shock. She stood motionless, robe draped over her arm, long ears twitching as she considered something. Then she stepped closer. I will return again, she said. Yeah. Cashin tried not to sound too eager. More repairs, or just here to critique my jokes? Both, he chuckled. Guess I better start writing new material. As she walked away, silent as always, he noticed something tucked under his scanner, an old thread, removed from her robe, coiled like a silver ring. A gesture of trust, maybe, or acknowledgement, or some Alari custom he had no hope of understanding. He picked it up carefully, holding it between his fingers. It shimmered in the light, vibrating with soft residual energy. He grinned. Then winced. Yup, still buzzing, should have expected that. He tucked it into his chest pocket and turned back to his workbench, heart humming with something he couldn't quite name. The artificial daylight panels in the repair bay flickered once. An annoying glitch Cashin had been meaning to fix for weeks, and then hummed back to life. He muttered something unkind about the ship's overworked power grid as he slid his repair tray into place and glanced at the entrance. Right on time, the doors hissed open and Vailra entered, carrying what looked like the outer chest plate of her ceremonial armor, or at least what remained of it. Cashin blinked. Okay, that's not a robe. Vailra placed the scorched armor piece on the table, a faint curl of smoke rising from one corner. The robe is intact. This is not. He prodded it with a gloved finger. Did it get into a fight with a son? Or did someone throw spicy soup at you again? There was an encounter, she said. Let me guess. Another ambush, a surprise duel, galactic bake-off gone wrong. She didn't respond, but her eyes twitched in a way he was beginning to recognize. Half irritation, half secret amusement. It was like trying to make a tree laugh, but Cashin was persistent and mildly delusional. "All right," he said, rolling up his sleeves. "Let's see if I can save your noble chest plate from becoming interstellar toast." As he worked, his tools humming with low-frequency whirs and nanoplasma arcs, Valeria paced slowly behind him. She always did that, circling like a silent specter, watching his every move. At first it unsettled him. Now it was just part of the routine, like the smell of ionized dust or the way the ship's intercom occasionally whispered fragments of old maintenance logs. Cashin adjusted his visor and frowned at the data readout. "Well, the alloy structure's still holding, but the inner layer's gone. You'll need a full subweave replacement, which means I have to patch this manually. Again, with materials that don't want to be friends with each other. Just like my last birthday party." Valeria stopped pacing. "You had a party." "It was me, a malfunctioning cake printer, and 3 engineers who only showed up because I bribed them with rations." The printer exploded. "We ate freeze-dried potatoes in silence. It was magical." She looked at him, expression unreadable. "Why did you invite others?" "Because otherwise it would have been me talking to a balloon," he replied. "Which, for the record, has happened before. Balloons are good listeners, terrible at feedback." Cashin resumed his repairs, guiding a laser threader into the armor's delicate inner groove. Sparks danced between the overlapping layers. He moved carefully, knowing one wrong surge would melt the whole structure. Beside him, Valeria crouched silently, watching. "You've repaired this type before?" she asked. "Well, not exactly this model," he admitted. "But once I patched up a suit of Prixian riot armor using half a spork and a rubber band. The key is pretending you know what you're doing until it works." She tilted her head. "That explains your process." He smirked. "Don't knock it. Improvisation is 90% of engineering. The other 10% is swearing at things." A soft hum vibrated through the floor. The ship was shifting its orbital drift. Outside the windowless walls, Cashin knew they were circling the perimeter of the Ilari judicial moon, where Valeria's hearing would take place in just 3 days. He hadn't asked what kind of judgment she faced. He didn't have to. It was written all over her silence. He paused, fingers brushing the edges of the armor's engraved crest. "This isn't just for show, is it?" She was quiet a long time before answering. "It belonged to my sister." "The same one from the memory echo." She nodded. "You will not need to wrestle them," she said, eyes glinting. "You will use pretend and swearing." He laughed. "You remembered." "I listen," she said. He pretended to be annoyed. "Great. Now I can never make a joke without fearing you're going to store it, and bring it back later with perfect pronunciation. Like Galactic Bake-Off." His face went red. "Okay, wow, that was meant to be forgotten." "Unlikely." They fell into a companionable rhythm as he completed the structural fixes, her presence no longer sharp-edged. The tension between them had thinned, not vanished, but reshaped into something more like gravity. Constant. Familiar. Occasionally inconvenient. When he finished sealing the plate, Cashin held it up proudly. "Ta-da! Reinforced, restructured, and lightly insulted during the process. It's practically a member of the crew now." Valeria stood, taking the armor with a slow nod. "You did well." He leaned back, wiping his hands. "You always say that with the same tone you use for acceptable. I'm going to need a ranking system from you eventually. Like a color chart. I will consider it." "You could add stickers," he said. "Gold stars for particularly clever repairs." "Stickers are inefficient. They're motivational." She turned to leave but paused at the door. "You are unlike others." He blinked. "Thanks, I think. I do not understand why you help me." He shrugged. "Because you keep bringing me cool alien stuff to fix, and because I like talking to you, even when you don't talk back." She looked at him for a long moment. "You are peculiar. You keep saying that like it's a bad thing." It is not. She left without another word. Cashin watched the door slide shut behind her and let out a slow breath. Then he looked down and realized she'd left behind another piece of the armor, small, triangular, marked with a symbol he didn't recognize. He picked it up carefully. It was warm to the touch. He didn't know what it meant. Not yet. But something in him said it wasn't an accident. Cashin sat alone in the darkened repair bay, staring at the small, triangular piece of armor Veilra had left behind. It sat under the light of his workbench, perfectly still, but something about it tugged at him. He descanned it twice. No power source, no embedded tech, but it shimmered faintly as if reacting to his proximity. He picked it up again. It was warm, not hot, not reactive, just warm, like it remembered who last held it. "Okay," he murmured. "Either this thing likes me or I've finally snapped." The bay door opened with its usual hydraulic hiss, and Cashin jumped like a startled maintenance bot. Veilra entered, as silent as always. But this time she wasn't alone. Behind her hovered a small Ilari device, circular, floating, and covered in glyphs that blinked in soft, rhythmic pulses. It reminded Cashin of a mechanical jellyfish. A jellyfish that might judge your soul. "This is new," he said, trying to sound casual. "Should I bow or offer it a snack?" "It is an ancestral echo stone," Veilra said, guiding it forward with a gesture. "It will record my final testimony." Cashin's stomach sank a little. Final testimony, that sounds foreboding. "It is required before the tribunal." He looked at her, really looked this time. Her posture was stiff, but not from pride, something deeper. Determination wrapped in fear, armored in silence. "You sure you want to do this alone?" he asked. "I mean, I could come along and confuse them with a 10-minute story about how I once welded a toilet to the ceiling by accident." Veilra blinked. "You did that?" "No," he admitted, "but they won't know that." A flicker crossed her face. Not a smile, something gentler, sadder. She approached the bench and reached for the triangle he'd been holding. Their hands touched for a fraction of a second, her fingers brushing his knuckles, her skin still cooler than his, but neither pulled away. "It is a clan marker," she said quietly. "It binds one warrior to another. My sister once gave it to me before she left for her final command." Cashin nodded slowly. "And now you gave it to me." She didn't answer. "I'm not sure I deserve it," he added, barely above a whisper. "Deserving is irrelevant," Veilra said. "Trust is given, not earned." The echo stone hovered closer, its glyphs shifting in slow waves. Veilra placed the marker back on the table. "I must record the truth now." Cashin leaned back and gestured. "Then go ahead, pretend I'm not here. I'm just the local wall fungus." She glanced at him. "You are loud fungus." He grinned. "I try." Veilra stood tall, eyes locked on the floating stone. Her voice when she spoke was low but powerful, each Ilari word resonating in the chamber like a solemn drumbeat. The glyphs responded to her voice, recording every syllable, every breath. Cashin couldn't understand the language, but he understood tone. Her words weren't just a defense. They were a story of loss, of loyalty, of betrayal, and something else, something soft hidden between the phrases. She stopped. The glyphs blinked, then dimmed. The stone hovered back and docked itself into a containment cradle. Cashin cleared his throat. "So, what now?" "The tribunal convenes in 12 hours. He looked around. "That's not much time to prepare another armor repair montage." "There will be no battle," she said. He raised an eyebrow. "Have you met you?" Veilra looked at him, her expression unreadable. "If they find me guilty, I will be exiled. My name erased. My sister's legacy condemned alongside mine." Cashin swallowed. "No pressure, huh?" "I did not call you here for comfort," she said. He nodded. "I know. You came for sarcasm and mediocre engineering." She blinked. Then for the first time she stepped forward and sat beside him. Not standing, not watching from a distance. Sitting. "I was not trained for doubt," she said. "Neither was I," Cashin replied. "But I have a lot of practice." She tilted her head. "You are strange. You're just now realizing that." He reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a folded square of synthetic cloth. I fixed something else, by the way. Vailra raised an eyebrow. He unfolded it. It was a patch stitched in Terran script on one side, Alari glyphs on the other. One side read Resilient Idiot. The other, Endures with Humor. I thought maybe, he said, if they do erase your name, you can borrow one of mine. Vailra took the patch, ran her fingers across the glyphs. You made this. I might have had help from the culinary printer, he admitted. It kept trying to add gravy. She didn't laugh, but her shoulders eased. They sat in silence for a long time. The hum of the ship's life support system buzzed faintly above them. Finally, Cashin stood. I'll walk you to the tribunal chamber tomorrow, just in case anyone tries anything shady, like sabotage or interpretive dance. Vailra looked up. You are not required. I'm not, but I'm coming anyway. She nodded once. Then she reached out and with careful fingers tapped the side of his visor. Then prepare your face, she said. He blinked. For what? Formal proceedings. Cashin grinned. You want me to wear pants, don't you? She stood. It is preferred. He mock-sighed. Fine, but only because you asked nicely. As she turned to leave, he caught himself smiling again. Not because things were certain, but because something in him, something quiet, knew he wouldn't let her face this alone. And somewhere beneath the static of fear, he thought maybe she wouldn't let him go either. The tribunal chamber looked nothing like Cashin had expected. There were no high, looming thrones or ominous shadows, no darkened balconies of judgment. Instead, it resembled a minimalist opera hall, sleek metal arches, circular floor markings, and holographic flame rings flickering overhead like some ancient ritual was waiting to begin. Or a concert, a very serious concert. Cashin stood stiffly behind Vailra, freshly scrubbed and miraculously wearing real trousers. They itched, terribly. He kept shifting his weight, which earned him a sideways glance from the Alari security officer at the archway. He smiled back politely as if to say, yes, I'm the ridiculous human, but I'm her ridiculous human. Vailra stood motionless, her repaired robe flowing like liquid steel across her shoulders, the patched crest glinting under tribunal light. The triangular clan marker was secured at her collar, right over her heart. Cashin had offered to polish it before the hearing. She'd said no. It has already done its part, she'd told him. The three judges appeared simultaneously, holographically projected from off-world. Each bore the traditional Alari robes of arbitration, their ears adorned with ceremonial memory chains. They did not speak at first. They watched, scanned, observed. When they finally addressed Vailra, the language they used was slow, formal, and heavy with historical weight. Cashin's translator earpiece tried valiantly to keep up, occasionally blurting out odd phrases like honor breach comparative encoding or ancestral worth deficiency. He winced. Alari legal speech was like watching two glaciers argue about whose snowflake came first. Vailra answered with precision, her voice calm but firm. She described the events of the ambush, the betrayal by her own superior, the loss of her squad, and the aftermath. She presented the echo stone, now brimming with her testimony, emotion layered into every recorded syllable. The tribunal listened in total silence. Cashin fidgeted again. He wasn't allowed to speak, which was fine. He would have only said something wildly unhelpful, like, objection, she's great. After what felt like hours, one of the judges leaned forward, tilting his head toward Vailra. You presented this testimony as one who has been dishonored, he said. And yet, you wear the marker of another, a clan bond not your own. Vailra's gaze flickered just slightly and then she turned to Cashin. Cashin blinked. Wait, me, now. She held out her hand. He stepped forward cautiously, feeling every eye, real and digital, locked on him. His voice came out a little higher than he'd planned. Hello, Terran mechanic Cashin Holt. Frequent violator of safety protocols. Occasional cooker of edible meals. The judge did not blink. You repaired her ceremonial garments. Yes, with honor and duct tape. And she gave you a marker. Yes, he said. Then slower, she trusted me. I don't know why. I mean, I'm just some guy with a plasma stitcher and a decent collection of tool pouches. But I guess, sometimes it's not about status or bloodlines. Sometimes it's about who shows up, who listens, who stays. The chamber was quiet. He realized he was rambling, again. Also, she didn't punch me in the throat, so that means something. Valra stepped forward. I gave him the marker because he carried what my clan had forgotten: loyalty without condition, humor without cruelty, and patience. The youngest judge raised a brow. He is unusual. He is, Valra said. But he saw me when I was not seen. That is more than most. There was a pause. The judges looked to one another, then leaned back into their seats. One by one, their holograms flickered out, replaced by a glowing symbol above the tribunal dais. Cashin's earpiece buzzed. Judgment absolved of dishonor, restoration granted, clan name restored. Cashin blinked. Wait, that means. Vale returned to him. It means I am no longer erased. He exhaled. Oh, good. Because I had no backup patch design prepared for exile scenarios. She didn't smile. Not exactly. But her hand reached out, fingers brushing against his in the open, this time in front of everyone. Later, back in the repair bay, Cashin sat with his feet propped on the console, a protein bar in one hand and a heat pack on his back. He was sore in places he didn't know could be sore. Emotional stress was apparently a full-body workout. Valra sat across from him, examining a new piece of gear, standard-issue battle gauntlets, fresh, unworn. So, he said casually, now that you're re-honored, do I get a fancy title? Like honor sidekick or assistant to the respected one? You may choose your own designation, she replied. Oh, in that case I'd like to be known as Captain Fix-It, galactic hero of patchwork and snacks. She considered this unwise. The smoother of seams, the whispered name. Stop. He grinned. You're smiling, admit it. I am not. You are, I see it. There's a barely detectable twitch in the left cheek quadrant. Valra reached for her repaired robe and stood. I have a new assignment, planetside training in the Arkan Range. Harsh winds, harsh terrain. Cashin raised an eyebrow. You going alone? She met his eyes. I am requesting one human engineer, familiar with Alari textiles, and peculiar behavior. He stared at her, jaw half open. Wait, are you